Buddy Holly died today with their pilot in the crash of a chartered plane.
Getting ready to leave and tell each other goodbye, that Buddy said to Waylon, "Well, I hope your ass freezes on the bus."
And here I am, about 19 years old, and I said, "Yeah, well, I hope your old plane crashes."
He was only 22 when it happened. A rising star, a sold-out show. Then suddenly, nothing. On a cold February night in 1959, Buddy Holly boarded a small plane and never made it to his next gig. The world called it an accident.
An airplane carrying Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper crashed, killing all three, who were some of the biggest stars in the earliest days of rock and roll.
The day the music died, 64 years after the plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, the Big Bopper, and pilot Roger Peterson.
But decades later, his brother uncovered something that changed everything. A mysterious object found at the crash site, a chilling warning from a fortune teller, and a buried report the public was never supposed to see. Was Buddy Holly's death really an accident, or something far darker? Because what his family just revealed? It flips the entire story upside down. Before we dive into the shocking new revelations, we have to rewind to the quiet boy from Texas who wasn't supposed to become a legend. He didn't look like a rock star. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud. And yet, Charles Hardin Buddy Holly would go on to flip the music world on its head. Born in Lubbock, Texas in 1936, Buddy was the youngest of four in a working-class family that lived and breathed music. His parents didn't have much, but they had guitars, and that was enough. His older brothers used to jam in the living room, and little Buddy, he watched every move. One time, when he was too young to play, they gave him a violin, but oiled the bow so it wouldn't make a sound. They just wanted him to feel like part of the band. By the time he hit high school, Buddy wasn't just in the band, he was the band. Obsessed with melodies, rhythm, and the raw energy of rock and roll, he teamed up with his friend Bob Montgomery. They called themselves Buddy and Bob, playing anywhere that would let them plug in. Then came the moment that changed everything. He saw Elvis live. That swagger, the sound, the crowd losing their minds, it lit a fire in Buddy. He didn't just want to play music anymore. He wanted to change it. From that day on, music wasn't just a passion, it was a mission. He started crafting a sound that didn't quite fit in with country, blues, or rock. It was all three at once, a bold blend that no one had ever heard before. And slowly, Buddy Holly stopped sounding like the artists he admired, and started sounding like the artist others would copy. But while his music was starting to break rules, Buddy was about to go even further, challenging the entire music industry in a way no one saw coming. He looked like the all-American boy, buttoned-up shirts, thick black glasses, polite smile. But behind the innocent image, Buddy Holly was a quiet revolutionary. While most artists at the time were being told what to sing, how to sing it, and when to smile, Buddy had no interest in playing along. He wanted total control, and he fought for it. He wasn't just singing the songs, he was writing them, producing them, and building them from scratch. That was almost unheard of in the 1950s, when most performers were just faces for someone else's vision. Not Buddy. He demanded a seat at the table and eventually took over the whole room. He even experimented with instruments other musicians wouldn't touch. Take the Celeste, a soft, dreamy keyboard that sounded more like a music box than rock and roll. Nobody was using it, until Buddy used it on Every Day. Suddenly, it was magic, but his fight for artistic freedom came at a cost. After clashes with record executives at Decca, he walked away. Most musicians wouldn't dare burn a bridge like that, but Buddy refused to let anyone else shape his sound. He was clean-cut on the outside, sure, but underneath that polite Texas charm, he was as punk rock as it got. A true original, willing to risk everything to stay true to his art. But while he was fighting for creative freedom in the studio, behind closed doors, Buddy's personal life was starting to fall apart, and the relationships around him were more complicated than anyone knew. At the height of his fame, Buddy Holly was living the dream. Chart-topping hits, sold-out shows, screaming fans. But behind the scenes, his love life was unraveling. In 1958, Buddy shocked friends and family when he proposed to Maria Elena Santiago, a receptionist at a New York recording studio, on their very first date. She said yes, and just like that, they were married. To the outside world, it seemed like a fairy tale, but those close to them knew it wasn't so simple. Rumors swirled that the marriage was cold, strained, and headed straight for collapse. Buddy's relentless tour schedule didn't help, and the people around them noticed the cracks forming fast. Then things got even messier. Buddy had once written one of his most famous songs, Peggy Sue, about a girl who wasn't even his girlfriend. She was dating his drummer, Jerry Allison. But everyone could feel it. There was chemistry between Buddy and Peggy. They flirted, they joked, they shared moments. And while Jerry tried to laugh it off, the tension never fully disappeared. Then came a twist no one expected. Buddy and Maria, Jerry and Peggy, the two couples went on a honeymoon together to Acapulco, Mexico. Yes, together, but it didn't bring them closer. In fact, by the end of 1958, Buddy was reportedly urging Peggy to leave Jerry over his drinking habits. She refused, but years later, in 1965, she did file for divorce, something her strong Catholic upbringing had always made unthinkable. Adding to the emotional chaos, Maria Elena became pregnant, but just months later, she suffered a devastating miscarriage, triggered by the trauma of Buddy's sudden death. So many songs, so many smiles. But under the surface, Buddy's world was cracking apart, and just when it seemed like things couldn't get more chaotic, Buddy made a decision that would seal his fate forever. February 2, 1959, a freezing night in Clear Lake, Iowa. The crowd at the Surf Ballroom had no idea they were watching three legends take the stage for the very last time. The winter dance party tour was brutal. Long bus rides, broken heaters, freezing temperatures, everyone was exhausted, sick, and fed up. So Buddy made a call. He decided to charter a small private plane to the next tour stop in Minnesota. The plan? Skip the cold bus, get some rest, and clean their clothes. Simple, efficient, safe, or so they thought. There were only 3 seats available on the plane. Buddy had his. The other 2 left to fate. Tommy Alsop, Buddy's guitarist, was supposed to go, until Richie Valens asked for the seat. They flipped a coin. Richie won. "That's the first time I've ever won anything in my life," he said. It would also be his last. Waylon Jennings, who was touring with them, gave up his seat to the Big Bopper, J.P. Richardson, who was battling the flu. The bus was miserable, and for a man his size, unbearable. It was a last-minute reshuffle, one nobody could have predicted, and one that changed music history forever. The pilot, Roger Peterson, was young, just 21, experienced but not licensed to fly solely using instruments in low visibility. And that night, snow was falling, wind was howling, the skies were pitch black. They took off shortly after midnight, and within minutes, the plane disappeared off radar. It wasn't until the next morning that a farmer discovered the wreckage in a frozen cornfield. The bodies of Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper were found near the twisted fuselage. All 3 had been thrown from the plane, their injuries fatal. Buddy was just 22. One decision, one flight, and the sound of an entire generation went silent. But what investigators found at the crash site would spark rumors that refused to die. And what they didn't report? That's where the real mystery begins. 2 months after the crash, a local farmer stumbled upon something strange buried in the snow, a pistol. It was registered to Buddy Holly. The discovery sent shockwaves through fans and conspiracy theorists alike. Had the gun gone off mid-flight? Did something happen on that plane no one ever reported? Some speculated that a struggle broke out. Others believed the pilot was accidentally shot. The headlines went wild. Theories flew faster than the plane ever did. But despite the noise, the official crash report made no mention of the weapon. No explanation, no investigation, and that silence only made the rumors louder. Decades later, an autopsy on the Big Bopper found no evidence of foul play. But for many, the damage was done. A new layer of mystery was now etched into rock and roll history. And that wasn't even the strangest revelation Buddy's family would uncover. For years, the official story was simple. Bad weather, pilot error, tragic accident. But Buddy Holly's brother Larry wasn't satisfied. He spent over a year fighting to get access to the full civil aeronautics report, something most families never see. When he finally got it, what he read chilled him. The plane had been outfitted with a brand new Sperry gyroscope, an unusual instrument that worked in reverse from standard models. Normally, a gyroscope shows the plane's position by moving the horizon line behind it. But this one, it did the opposite. So when the pilot looked at the gauge, it looked like the plane was climbing, when it was actually descending. Investigators now believe this confusion may have caused the crash, a fatal misreading, a preventable mistake. Larry believes the truth was buried for decades, not out of malice, but out of shame. A system failure, a deadly cover-up no one wanted to talk about. But there was still one more mystery that left fans stunned: the sudden reappearance of something that had vanished for over 20 years. Buddy Holly's thick-rimmed glasses were iconic, almost as famous as his music. But after the crash, they were nowhere to be found. For over 20 years, fans assumed they were lost forever, until a shocking discovery surfaced in the most unexpected place: a storage box inside a county courthouse, filed away, forgotten, and never cataloged. The glasses had been recovered at the crash site, but never returned. No explanation, no records, just sealed away like they didn't matter. When they were finally found, it sparked a legal battle between Buddy's widow, Maria Elena, and his parents. Both sides claimed ownership. It got personal. In the end, Maria won and made a powerful choice. She donated the glasses to the Buddy Holly Center in Lubbock, where they're displayed today as a tribute to his legacy. But even after all that time, the mystery surrounding Buddy's final days wasn't over yet. Buddy Holly was gone, but his voice? It refused to be silenced. In the months before the crash, he recorded 6 final songs alone in his New York apartment. Just him, a tape recorder, and a head full of melodies. They were raw, intimate, unfinished. But they carried the unmistakable spark of a genius still evolving. After his death, producers scrambled to bring his music back to life. Old tapes were overdubbed, demo vocals enhanced, studio scraps turned into singles. And shockingly, it worked. Buddy kept releasing hits. Even from the grave, his influence spread like wildfire. The Beatles? Obsessed with him. Springsteen? Called Buddy his blueprint. Artists across generations pointed to him as the reason they picked up a guitar.
He'd only been in the spotlight for 18 months.
But in that short time, he changed the sound and business of music forever. And when you hear what he left behind, it's hard not to wonder what the world lost that night in 1959.